Hello and welcome to another installation of Treasure Talk. Today we're going to look at sapphire rough.
So what we've got here on this light table is a selection of our large material from a mine run on the Montana Sapphires. We talked about this in an earlier video. This is the +6.7 to -8 millimeter size. So this is kind of the bread and butter of our entire mine runs. This is what's going to cut almost all the larger stones that you see on our website, those 1.3 to maybe 1.5, 1.6 carat size stones. And there's a whole process we go through after they arrive here of determining what we're going to cut or how we're going to cut it, what we're going to heat, and whether there's something in here that's maybe a rejected piece. And it's done on this light table because it gives me some options for how I can examine the rough. So we've got a gem scoop here with gritty on it because gritty is amazing. And a little flashlight that I'll use, and tweezers. And typically I'm using magnifying glasses like these. These are about 2x, 3x, depends. I have a couple different pairs. They're comfortable to use because they've got a long working distance, and this can be fatiguing to go through this. And then the light table itself actually can be turned on, and this gives me the ability to look at rough in a certain way. This isn't great for the video, so I won't do it for that, but I actually do sorting with both the light on and the light off. It gives me a different view of the rough as I'm examining it. What I'm doing as I go through this rough is looking for a number of things. First of all, I'm trying to see if there's any pieces in here that have inclusions to the extent that I'm going to reject them. And that's something that we've generally mostly removed in a mine run, but some slip through because it's a little challenging. And after the rough has been acid cleaned, sometimes a piece that looked okay during that first sort at the mine turns out to have problems that the acid cleaning revealed. So I'll make a cut through here and I'll look for stuff that's maybe got too many cracks or problems with it and take it out. This particular one here actually is not very good, so it's going to go in there. Usually at this size, a cracked piece or an included piece still actually has something decent for cutting a small gemstone from it. And what we'll do with those is add them to the small fractions where we're cutting those melee sizes I talked about earlier that we might send overseas. So it's not like it's a total waste, it's just not going to cut a large gemstone. The other thing I'm pulling out is this pile here, and this just shows you in terms of relative size the rarity of what you're dealing with. This is special stones, so fancy colors. There's some pinks and purples, oranges, yellows, and potential no heat stones, so stones that we can cut without heat treatment. This pile will actually get a lot smaller because the next stage for me, after I've done this first cut to pull out possible no heats, is to examine all of these under a microscope where I can really look inside. I'll use bright, intense fiber optic lights to examine the rough from a couple of different angles. And a lot of this, sometimes as much as 50% of what I've pulled here, will get taken out and go back in for the heat treatment steps. I will keep out some of the special fancy colors and we'll put them in a different batch of heating because we use a different process to heat stones that we want to get a fancy color from than we do the stones that we want those blue greens and blues. And really that has to do with sort of the atmospheric conditions during the heating. When you're going for the blues and the blue greens, you want to use what's called a reducing environment. It's got a lot of hydrogen and nitrogen gas and very little oxygen. And when we're going for those fancy colors, it's an oxygen-rich environment. So a little bit of heat information there as well. So a couple things that I'm doing while I go through here is I will spread these out, try to get them as flat and even as I can. And as I go through here, I'm looking for ones that have sort of a vibrancy and clarity that tell me that they have the potential to be cut without heat treatment. And there's not going to be a lot. I've already pulled quite a few out, but you know, here's a suspect. Sometimes it can be a little tricky because there is kind of a natural frosted coating on these crystals. And that's where that second stage under the microscope comes in. But a lot of times what I can tell just looking at them is they will seem to have more of a pure look and a little less of a hazy look. If you look at a lot of these here now, there is a little bit of a hazy look to many of them. A lot more visible when you're up close than in this video. But you can almost see just the richness of color in this pile compared to this. And that haziness is the rutile silk that the heat treatment will dissolve. It'll enhance the color and enhance the clarity. So a couple things as well, while I'm doing this and I'm looking at these pieces, I will pick them up and sometimes take a look with the bright flashlight. What this lets me do is really look inside of a piece, see if there's any cracks. Silk patches will flash a little bit with this. This particular stone looks fabulous, but when I put a bright light on it, I can see there's actually a tiny crystal inclusion near the middle. So, it can take a piece like this that would be really a remarkable stone and make it more of a very slightly included or a slightly included stone. Again, still a valuable stone, but not as valuable as one that would have nothing showing in it. Okay, and then another important thing is that sapphire rough is pleochroic, and that means that the different axes of the crystal will show different colors. So when I'm looking at it in here and I'm looking to see sort of fancy and unusual colors, sometimes it won't show up until I take the rough and roll it around like I'm doing here. And the crystal will turn and look a totally different color. This is particularly the case in Montana Sapphires with some of the unusual violet stones, especially ones that are violet with an orange center. The other long axis of the crystal, or the AB axis, will actually often look greenish, but then you rotate it and you'll see that purple and orange on the C axis. So those are definitely ones I'm looking for to pull out, because once I pull those out, those will get that special heat treatment and really turn into kind of a remarkable party-colored orange-purple stone. Here's one actually here that just did that, and I'll put it over. And then ultimately, once I finish sorting for the heat, no heat, there will be some in here that are clear enough to not need heat treatment, but we'll heat them anyway because it will enhance the color. And as we talked about earlier in one of the Treasure Talk videos, one of the most important things about pricing and value in sapphire and most colored gemstones actually is the color. So to the extent that we can improve the color, it will definitely increase the value and the market demand for it. We've actually had stones that I've had sit around for several years that I cut not, without heat treatment, and I send them off, heat treat them, repolish them up, and they sell within days or weeks because the color is improved so much that the market value and the demand for it shoots up and someone snaps up a really great gemstone pretty quickly. So that's kind of the process. It's pretty painstaking. It will take me usually a couple days to do this because I'll go through and do a first cut, and then I will put it aside, kind of rest my brain and my eyes, and come back and take a second look. And then the final step after I finish this will be to take these special fancy ones and spend another batch of hours underneath the microscope and send the rest off for heat treatment and move into the next phases of the whole process.